Field Notes is the result of 2 years of me making music outside in nature. The rough idea is that it combines electromagnetic fields and musical notes. So I'm harnessing the electromagnetic fields and the vibration of the world around us in the form of plant bioelectricity, latent radio waves, field recordings, the Earth's resonant hum, and turning that into kind of like dreamy ambient soundscapes. I'm actually a biologist. I grew up studying biology and then somehow I ended up doing music for years. And so this is also an opportunity for me to re-engage with my roots as a biologist, and Field Notes refers to that spirit too, the spirit of being outside in nature and taking notes. I'm most well known for making plant music, for making mushroom music, and that's how people on the internet know me, but I've actually been an artist for a really long time. And so this album is kind of a combination of a bunch of different ideas. There's some plant music where I'm actually plugging into plants. I think I made music with a papaya and a tiger lily on this record. But there's also music that I made with just inspiration from the natural world. So almost all of these songs were made outside in nature, most of them in the northern Gulf Islands of British Columbia, where I spend a bunch of my time. And during the pandemic, I was finding myself outside just making music, looking for something that made some kind of sense. This box is a modular synthesizer. It looks really complicated, but it's actually just a synthesizer with the wires on the outside so you can reroute stuff that you want to reroute. It's almost like a custom-made synthesizer. And what I typically do is plug into plants or mushrooms and run a small little current through it. As that current changes, as the resistance changes over time, it creates notes and rhythm changes on a synthesizer, and I can route those changes to any synthesizer I want. I use a lot of this synthesizer, the Teenage Engineering OP1. I love the Prophet 6. I love the Moog Voyager. I love the Juno 106. Most of the music I make starts off as a collaboration. It's really fun to just be outside making music with no constraints. There's no grid. I don't know what key we're gonna be in. I don't know how long the composition is gonna be. Sometimes I'm recording for like 3 hours and I'll just pick the best 2 or 3 minutes to turn into a song. I really like this unguided, totally creative approach to making music that doesn't involve a whole lot of foresight. So almost everything was made live, and then typically I'll take stuff back into the studio and mix it and rearrange it and look for interesting things. Sometimes I'll take little sections and loop them. So there's an element of studio production, but everything starts off with a live session. I made Agency right outside the studio on the grass over there. So this over here, this little patch right in front of the studio is where I set up my gear for shooting Agency. This was early on in the pandemic and I was spending a lot of time making music outside in nature. I sort of went to a different place every day. I think I put down a couple of wood blocks and then my modular synth went here. And there was something about that morning that was just really special. I think it really captured the brightness and the coming to life and the excitement and the hope and the inspiration of spring. I was using a couple of guitar pedals with a really simple synthesizer pattern. Just kind of got lucky with this collection of sounds that to me sounded a lot like waves. And so there was something about that combination of sounds that really made me think and draw inspiration from this kind of classic Japanese environmental music album called Agency. So this little patch here is where I worked with the Tiger Lilies, which was the first single off of this record during the middle of the summer. This is expansive and exciting and inspiring garden. And I came over here in August of 2022 and hooked up my little devices here. I didn't really tell anyone I was coming, and spent the whole afternoon working with tiger lilies and with some daisies over there and with some dahlias over there, and just had the best time. It was so fun. A lot of plant music is quite staccato and arrhythmic and maybe not very, not very musical, and that it doesn't have predictable melodies and rhythms. And so I took a little loop of the tiger lily music, the little bioelectric fluctuations, and it's a loop that doesn't have like a grid to it, so it's sort of like a loping loop that's like quite arrhythmic but quite interesting. And then I built a whole composition around that loop. Despite the fact that it doesn't have a grid, there's some kind of integrity in that musical idea that I worked with to create the song. That all originated right here. There it is, right away. Here we go. The sphere. So this beautiful guy here is a musical instrument that lives in the forest. And the song Sphere on the record was made by me hooking up a cassette recorder right here, like a really low grade cassette recorder, a $20 cassette recorder, and just recording me sort of improvising with these sticks, like so, and then recording that into a cassette and playing it back at different pitches through a delay pedal. It's just so inspiring because it's not in normal tuning. It's in some kind of weird oceanic tuning where there's these sharp notes and octaves of these sharp notes. And it's kind of pentatonic, but it's really wonky pentatonic. And there's this harmonic element because they're just divots in one single ball, which makes it so inspiring to play. I find I can just get lost in this. And when you have friends who are all playing it together, it's a recipe for a really great afternoon. This project is really about connecting humans with nature, and that happens really well when you're plugging into plants and mushrooms because you're directly connecting with the natural world, and if nothing else, at least understanding, and this happens to me every time I work, understanding that the world is alive, that we are alive, and that all of us share this life together. All of us share some degree of consciousness together. Every step of the way, I'm trying to find solutions that are sustainable. There's so much about the modern music industry that is not sustainable at all, and it creates a ton of waste. So I was thinking to myself, what can we do around this release, around Field Notes, that actually abides by these principles? The first thing that I'm doing is making t-shirts out of recycled t-shirts. So they're not actually recycled t-shirts, they're t-shirts that have been donated and are sitting around in secondhand stores. And I have a friend who sources secondhand clothing, and then we're re-screen printing onto those t-shirts, so we're not creating any new waste. The second thing that we're doing is I got in touch with a cassette duplication company in Montreal that had a huge stock, like a warehouse full of cassettes that have mistakes on them. And so we're re-recording onto those cassette tapes, putting a new sticker and using 100% recycled cardboard as the liner. I think that this is the most sustainable way to put out a hard music thing, because you can also re-record onto those cassettes afterwards as well. I love listening to cassettes. I'm an analog music fan, and I'm really excited that this album is going to be available in an analog form. I hope this record brings people some kind of peace. The world is in such a turbulent state right now. All you have to do is open the news, and it just seems like there's so much dissonance. And so I was really hoping with this record to connect people to a source of calm, and also to link that source of calm back to the natural world. I feel like in nature, there is always hope. All you have to do is step outside. Mother Nature is the epitome, the expression of hope, of life, of joy, of courage, of tenacity. That resource is available to many of us. Even if you live in a city, it exists in your public park. And so this record is really my love letter to Mother Nature, but it's also hopefully a connection point back into her embrace.